Hi class, we're getting ready to start commas now, and this is pretty much where we're going to end our year. So let's start L610, commas, not just for pausing. All right, let's talk about some basic commas rules. And this lesson is really going to deal with something called a series or a list. And whenever you have a list of things, whether it's nouns, pronouns, adjectives, verbs, whatever, you're going to need a comma. Look for that fanboy. Remember your fanboys? Look for them, and that's going to help you know where you're going to put a comma. But here's the key, and pay attention to this. Let me bring up my highlighter here. You will never place a comma after a conjunction. So you will never put a for comma or and comma or nor comma. It always goes before the comma. Series, again, a list. We're going to recycle plastic, aluminum, and glass. So I have a list of things here that I'm going to recycle. Look at that list. And notice there is my fanboy and. And notice that I put a comma after each thing. Plastic, comma, aluminum, comma. And remember, we don't ever go after the fanboy. So it would never be and, comma. Do you notice that? So we stop right before it. Okay, so the trick here to help yourself is, here's another thing that I like to do to kind of help myself. Underline the three nouns: plastic, aluminum, and glass. All right, make sure that you separate each one of those three things with a comma after plastic and a comma after aluminum. Well, here's another one for you. Mr. Coleman will bring ties, socks, and pants for the students. Well, let's underline what he's bringing. Ties, socks, pants. Well, where would you insert your commas? Well, that's right, after each thing. Ties, comma, socks, comma, and we never go past our and, okay? Let's keep moving. What about some more nouns? I would like for you to write these 4 sentences on your paper and insert commas. Now, here's the thing that you need to know. When we're sticking in commas, we have to make sure that there are 3 or more things. So you need to count. Do I have 3 people? Am I doing 3 things? Okay, so count. Now, one of these, I want you to look at this one right here. Now, the third sentence, just tell me if this is right, and just tell me if it's right. Put a yes or no. Write the sentence and tell me if it's correct or incorrect. Make sure you bring these 4 sentences to class. Now let's talk about verbs in a series. Same thing. Whether you have a list of nouns or a list of verbs, if you have 3 or more, you're going to need a comma. My puppy is always running, jumping, and barking. Well, what's my puppy always doing? He's running, he's jumping, he's barking. Let's insert some commas. Running, comma, jumping, comma, and here's my fanboy, which is my stop sign for my comma. Here's another one. Raven swam, biked, and jogged to prepare for boot camp. Let's ask ourselves, what did Raven do? Well, she swam, she biked, she jogged. Well, let's insert some commas because that's 3 or more things. So she swam, comma, she biked, comma, and there's my stop sign, so I'm not going to put a comma after and. Now, put sentences A and B on your paper, and I would like for you to insert the commas. So underline the verbs, make sure you have 3 or more, and don't forget to look for your stop sign. So pause the recording and write your sentences down. All right, let's keep moving. What about adverbs and adjectives? Well, if you got a list of those, they've got to have commas too. Let's check this one out. Grandpa's nurse was well-trained, gentle, and caring. Well, how was she described? Let's count. She was well-trained, she's gentle, she's caring. Is that 3 or more? Sure is. Let's get them down. Well-trained, comma, gentle, comma. There's our stop sign, so we're not going to go past it. What about this one? Kadoria answered the phone quietly, deliberately, and confidently. Those LYs let us know we're looking at some adverbs. So how did she answer the phone? Let's underline. She did it quietly, she did it deliberately, and she did it confidently. That's 3 things, so let's insert some commas. Quietly, comma, deliberately, comma. There's our stop sign. What about this horse? The horse is old, it's tired and lame. So, old, comma, tired, comma, there's our stop sign. I am tired of this dreary, cold, and damp weather. Well, what kind of weather is it? Let's describe it. It's dreary weather. It's cold weather. And it's damp weather. Is that 3? Yes, let's insert some commas. Dreary, comma, cold, comma, and there's our stop sign. How you doing with these series? Just remember, if it's 3 or more, we're going to need some commas. Be careful. Sometimes adjectives are listed a little differently. Here's an example. David is a small and delicate boy. Well, let's describe this boy. What kind of boy is he? He is small and delicate. How many things is that? That's only 2. And notice that once they stick this here, if there's only 2 guys, no comma. This is not a list anymore. It's just 2 things here. Remember, it has to be 3 or more if I'm going to use my fanboy. No comma. But check this out. April is a small, delicate child. Well, what kind of child is she again? She's small and delicate. We're going to play the switcheroo game here when we're trying to decide. Now, do you see a fanboy here? No. Well, do you see 2 adjectives that can be switched around? Could I have said that April is a delicate, small child? Yeah. So if we can flip the word small and delicate and say delicate and small, then we're always going to put a comma between those 2 adjectives. So we learned about adjectives in a series. If there are 3 or more, we need a comma. But if 2 adjectives are sitting next to each other, like beautiful and tall, small and gentle, if those words say I'm a small, gentle person, or he's a tall, handsome guy, if they're sitting next to each other and you can flip them, then you're going to need a comma. So always pay that attention. That's going to be a little something that we're going to practice a little bit more in class, okay? So if the adjectives are sitting next door to each other and we can flip them, we're going to need a comma. Now watch out for this as well. I want a pound of that sweet and nutty candy. Well, let's think here. Think here. What kind of candy is it? It's sweet and nutty. Uh-oh. Do we have 3 things? No. So do we need a comma? We sure don't. Here's another one. It is a short and funny movie. Well, what kind of movie was it? Short and funny. That's only 2 things. We don't have a list. No comma. Now, what if I decided again I'm going to throw some more adjectives in a row? The tiny, happy, smiling baby laughed at me. Or there's no and, Miss Rivers, there's no fanboy. That's fine. With adjectives, we don't always need a fanboy. We can just go on and describe somebody. So we have a baby here and describe the baby. It's tiny, it's happy, it's smiling. Can I say the smiling, tiny, happy, the happy, smiling, tiny, the happy. You see how we can switch all those around? So whenever this happens, notice we say he's tiny. That's one thing to describe him. Well, what's the second thing? He's happy. And the third thing is smiling. The rule here now is that we don't want the comma to touch the actual noun. So the comma should not touch the noun. Earlier we said that the and or the nor, the but was going to be your stop sign. Where here, whenever we have no fanboy, we just make sure that we don't put a comma after that last adjective because we don't want the comma to touch the noun. We'll practice that more in class as well. Now, again, what about I said if they can be reversed? If you can't switch them, then you can't use a comma. What did I mean by that? Write this sentence down. Willie bought 4 new shirts. Okay, pause it and write it down. Now, let me ask you something about these shirts. Can you switch that around and say this? Tedrick bought new 4 shirts. No, it makes no sense. So guess what? If you can't switch the 2 adjectives, leave them alone. No comma. No comma. Don't use a comma. Let's keep going. Let's see this again. Write this sentence down. Haley adopted 2 tiny kittens. Well, what are your adjectives here? Underline your noun. Describe the kittens. 2 tiny. Ask yourself, can I reverse it? Bring this answer to class. Look at this one. Write this sentence down. Notice I put a comma here. Come in class and let me know is the sentence correct or not. Hold on, there's the bear. Okay, so I want you to write Haley adopted two tiny kittens and decide if it needs a comma. Then I want you to write the next sentence about the coach and decide if that comma should be there or not and bring this to class. What about if we have three adjectives? Miss Posey wrecked her shiny new expensive bike. Well, we've got a bunch of adjectives. Let's see if we need commas or where we're going to put them. So let's see. Let's pull our marker back up here. Let's use our pen and say, well, she had a bike. Let's describe her bike. It's new. It's shiny. It's expensive. Well, can I say that she wrecked her expensive, new, shiny bike? Is that okay? Yes, it is. So we're going to put commas there. Here's your practice. Please write these three sentences on your paper for me, please, and insert commas if necessary, okay? Only if necessary. So pause your recording and insert your commas. Now, we've looked at a series of nouns. We've looked at verbs. Let's talk about phrases. A group of words that does not have a subject of a verb. That's your definition of a phrase. So here's an example. A warm jacket. 2 bags of chips, your favorite CDs. Now, these are examples of phrases, whether it's a prepositional phrase or noun phrase, whatever. So you have phrases. So if we put this in a sentence, it says, please bring a warm jacket, 2 bags of chips, and your favorite CDs. Notice now that we still are using commas because even though it's more than one word, it's still a set. The warm jacket is one thing that I want you to bring. There's my one. 2 bags of chips is the second thing, and then your favorite CDs. And we said if we have 3 or more with a fanboy, what do? Yep, we use a comma. All right, so here's another example. Our students are selling boxes of candy, books of raffle tickets, and gym memberships. So what's the first thing we're selling? Boxes of candy. The second is books of raffle tickets, and the third is gym memberships. So we would have to put commas between these different phrases. Isn't that neat? Here's your practice. Please write this sentence on your paper and insert commas. So pause the recording and write this sentence down, and we'll bring it to class and look at it. What about verb phrases? We've looked at noun phrases. Let's look at verb phrases. Mr. Dixon, what did he do? He started the grill. He cooked the hot dogs, and he brought the table outside. Same thing here. What did he do? He started the grill. That's his first thing. He cooked the hot dogs. That's his second thing. He brought the table outside. Well, we have a series of 3 things or more. And a fanboy? Yep, got to have a comma. Here's your practice. Please write this sentence on your paper and insert commas where necessary. Okay, so bring this to class as well. Prepositional phrases are just like what we've been doing. Here's an example. At the game room with my classmate for Wyatt's brother. Remember prepositional phrase, our prepositional tree? Anything the squirrel can do to a tree? Well, if you have a series of 3 or more prepositional phrases, you're going to need commas. Check this out. The ants were in our food, in our clothes, in our hair. The ants were 3 places. In our food, number 1, in our clothes, number 2, and in our hair, number 3. That means we need commas. Here's your turn. Please write this sentence on your paper, and please insert commas and bring this to class as well. So pause the recording and get this done. Down, and I want you to combine them into one sentence and use a comma. And you may use any fanboy you like, okay? So here are 3 more sentences that I would like for you to write down. Write these 3 sentences down for me, please. And then I want you to bring these to class as well. All right, here's the last thing we're going to talk about, unnecessary commas. Well, you've learned the rules, and sometimes commas get stuck in places they have absolutely no business. Can you figure it out? I would like a coat, some shoes, and a new dress. Well, I got to ask myself, what do I want here? Well, I want a coat, that's the first thing. I want some shoes, that's the second thing. I want a new dress, that's the third thing. Well, we never learned about putting a comma in front of the series. We said after each thing in the series. So this would be an unnecessary comma after like it would have to go. What about this one? Michelle bought a guitar, an amplifier, and a chord book. Well, I already see the problem. Did you see it? Did you see the stop sign? Uh-oh, there's a comma after the stop sign. That's never right. And our last one, it was time for singing, dancing, and clapping. Well, what was it time for? Well, first thing, it was for singing, it was for dancing and clapping. Then why in the world do we have a comma after time and for? So don't get twisted up or get messed up with those unnecessary commas.